Welcome to MILF Ministry podcast, where we explore self-love, healing, and intimacy. My name is Ayodele Vassell. I'm an attorney, a creative, and a MILF. Merch is now available at milfministry.com. You can join our live conversations on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter by following at MILF Ministry. Today's topic is called The Conversation. It's based off a situation that occurred between myself and my daughter. Basically, she was sad because she realized that I was not going to be with her father ever again. And we had to have a conversation about what that meant and what that looked like. Because unfortunately, she was a little nervous. You know, she was like, you're spending time with other people. I noticed that, but you're not spending time with my father. And to give everyone context, my daughter was, I believe, 6 years old when we told her together that we were getting a divorce. And it's a few years later now. So now she's older, she has time to process and really dive into what that means for her, what that looks like for her. And unfortunately, she realizes that that means less time with her father. And it was a tough conversation to have because in her mind, she felt like if I would stop spending time with other people, then I could have time to spend with her father. And we had to really sit down and talk about, no, it doesn't matter who I spend time with. It'll never be with your father in that way. Now, we can do family events like theme parks and movies and, we can arrange things like that together with us, as a family unit. I'm very open to that. And I believe her father is open to that. But in terms of like seeing us together in a relationship, again, that is not a reality. And I understand that you may want it or have a desire for it, and that's okay. It's natural, it's healthy. That's what most children want, but you need to understand that that's not going to happen. And I also had to take the conversation a little further by reminding her why I decided to leave. And also going into how I view myself as her mother. So I explained to her that I believe it's my responsibility to not only live the best life for myself and the happiest life for myself, but it's my responsibility to teach her that not only through my words, but through my behavior. So without getting into too much detail, of my marriage, there were some situations that occurred and arguments that occurred that I decided we're not going to get better. Like sometimes you can argue with your partner and say, okay, this is what I can do. And these are the things that I can shift to make the relationship better. And your partner can also come to you and say, okay, these are the things that I can do and I can shift to make things better. And together, you all can agree that this is how you're going to work together to have a better relationship. Sometimes when people argue, you realize that the person really doesn't think whatever they're doing is wrong or hurting you or that you have the right to be heard or whatever. And vice versa. Sometimes you come into the relationship with some fundamental values that you will absolutely not bend on. You're not going to bend. You're not going to change. And it's really, really difficult to realize that after you've been married for years and after you've already had a child or more children with the person. That you look at the person and say, wow, we're never going to agree on this. And that's always going to, that's never going to be okay for me. Or your partner may look at you and say, that behavior is never going to be okay. We can't compromise on this particular issue. It's just, it doesn't sit well with my spirit, or I feel disrespected, or, it makes me feel insecure. And insecure could be, it makes me feel insecure emotionally. It can make you feel insecure financially. There are different ways where you could feel insecure. But long story short, you can sit down with your partner and realize that certain behaviors are going to disrupt your spirit. They're going to disrupt your energy. And you just don't have a desire to deal with it, because it will inevitably end in an argument that will spill over to your energy, like how you carry yourself throughout the day, but also the energy in which you parent, if that makes sense. So I explained to my daughter that once I realized that there were certain things that we would always disagree on in our marriage, and that I had no desire to argue about those things that would not change over and over again, that it was time to end the relationship. And I reminded her of some specific scenarios that were very painful. And unfortunately, she actually did have some memories of those scenarios. And I explained to her that I had no desire to repeat those scenarios and no desire to constantly, like even if it was something that happened once a year or once every few months or once every 5 years, I just had no desire to repeat those scenarios with her. And that it was important that she saw that I was committed to being happy, period. And like I said, we also had to have a very serious conversation about the fact that it doesn't matter who she sees me spending time with, that person won't be her father, based on the conversation of your father and I have some differences that won't be reconciled in a peaceful way. And I've decided to live a peaceful life. And so the other part of the conversation was, thank you for being brave enough to speak up for yourself. You have a right to tell me what you're comfortable with. You have a right to tell me what's bothering you. And it's important for me to understand that sometimes, and just in a conversation for the sake of the podcast, it's important for us as mothers, not even just me and my daughter, it's important for us as mothers to understand and really sit down with our children that are of the appropriate age. I'm talking about 10 years to really 18 years old, like the age where your kids will be in your home and possibly interact with a new person that you bring into your life, because you don't have to bring that person around. But if you choose to, really take to heart and understand that most children, kind of romanticize the idea of you, their mother, being with their father. And they don't really have a concept of the day-to-day mechanics of what it takes to have a healthy, happy relationship emotionally, financially, and all the other things that go into it that you don't necessarily discuss with your kids. But they are going to be impacted by the energy of it. So like I said, going back to the conversation with my daughter, I was like, it's my responsibility to be happy, but also to teach you to be happy yourself and to not be married or in a relationship just for the sake of saying that you are. Or even, as much as I love you, my child, not to be married just because I know that you love your father and that you want to see us together. That's not a strong enough reason to be married. That's not a strong enough reason to be married if I'm actually not happy and not going to be the best woman I can be and mother I can be to you. So the other part of what I thought was important was encouraging my daughter to have a voice, in a respectful way, like explaining to me how she felt and what was going on so that I could understand her mood and understand her behavior. Because once again, without going into too many details, she was behaving in a way that was out of character. And she did some things and said some things that make me question, like, okay, well, what's really going on? Is something bothering you? Because I'm not used to you behaving this way. I'm not used to you acting this way. And rather than react with anger or punish you or say you're being rude, because I have no problem doing any of those things. For whatever reason, I decided to dig a little bit deeper. And that's how we came up on this tough conversation. Because like I said, the conversation was, I see you spending time with people that are not my father. And I'm wondering if you stop spending time with them, would you have time for my father? Type thing. And so, like I said, after I explained the relationship, the second part was encouraging her and giving her space to have a voice. Because I feel like that's really healthy for her to feel comfortable enough to speak up and tell me the truth. Like I said, that was part one. Part two was explaining to her the types of family things that we could do together. Theme parks, movies, etc., if we plan it properly. And part three was just really reaffirming her voice and comforting her and helping her understand that her feelings are okay. Her feelings are valid. Her feelings are natural. And I am here to do what I can to help her in any given way process those feelings, while at the same time helping her understand that I have to do what's best for me as her mother. As hard as that may be, I have to do what's best for her. And what's best for her is for me to be happy, teaching her to be happy, but also for me to actually be happy. Because I went into some further detail about what I believe life is like when you're living with a parent that is not happy because of other things that are going on. Sometimes as a child, you can process that as your parent is angry with you, and that's not a good feeling to have. So I try my best in raising my daughter to explain to her, listen, I have a lot of work this week, I have overtime, or I'm dealing with something else, because you may not want to tell your child specifically what's going on. But, you talk to them and say, look, I have a lot on my plate this week. I need you to just do X, Y, Z, and give me the space to navigate all of the things I need to do and understand that my patience is very thin this week. That may not work for every single child, but I feel like at minimum, giving your child a heads up that you are having a tough week or having a tough time and trying to isolate that from your actual love for them or your feelings for them can help your relationship in the long run. Because once again, part of being a MILF means that you may not have the support that you used to from your child's father, because you may no longer be with your child's father. And like I said, most of my experience is dedicated to women in that particular category. You were with your child's father, either through, marriage, boyfriend, whatever kind of union you decided to have, and now you're no longer with your child's father, and now you're moving on. So you're dating new people, you may have a new boyfriend, you may even be remarried. But the issues that you have are very unique because you created a whole human being or multiple human beings. And the person that you created them with is no longer a major part of your life. So this tough conversation with your child about how the reality that they want will not happen, that very tough conversation is something that I wanted to bring up on this very brief episode. Because it was a hard conversation to have, but I felt like it was necessary. And like I said, when we talk to our children, we want to make sure that they understand that their comfort is important. I mean, most mothers that listen to my podcast are going to want their child to be comfortable with their new partner. But it's very important for your child to understand that it is your business and your right to find happiness on your own. And the compromise could just be that whoever you decide to interact never crosses paths with your child. I know plenty of women that do that. And, people have mixed thoughts about that, because sometimes your child grows up thinking that you didn't ever have a desire to love again or have partnership again. And I don't know if that's always the best example. I know plenty of women, especially in my mother's generation, like women that are 60 and above, that if they ever did decide to get divorced and they didn't officially remarry, whatever they did, their children knew nothing about it. Like at all. They never saw mama getting dressed up to go out. They never, if you think back, then maybe you can say, oh, well, mom did drop us off at grandma's house, once a month. And during that once a month time, you don't know what your mom was doing. I think people my age and younger, like people in their 30s and, lower 40s, that age range, you're not really trying to hide the fact that you're living your life. So if you go into brunch with your girlfriends, you may let your child know that, especially if they're of age. If you're going on a date, you may let your child know that. You may not go into specifics of who you're dating or where you're going or how serious the relationship is. But I think most women are just kind of a little bit more open now because they realize that life goes on. And also with the way the world is, there's so many of your children's classmates and other people that are going to know that people get divorced, and they're going to know that people move on and people date. It's just not as taboo as it used to be. So long story short, this was a conversation really hyper-focused on my specific audience. And that is, like I said, about the conversation. Talking to your child about the fact that you may not ever be with their father again, and just processing that. What does that feel like? What does that look like? What does that mean to you? It will be cool to get some feedback from my audience about how that conversation went for you when you told your kids. Were they excited for you? Like, yes, I want you to date again. Or, yes, I remember how things were with our father. And I'm just glad that you're happy, Mom. And I want you to be happy. Or was there pushback? Like, no, we want you to be with Dad. And they didn't really have an understanding of what things were like. Yeah, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the DMs. Let me know. Thanks for listening to this episode of MILF Ministry Podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and then share it. Merch is available at milfministry.com. You can join our live conversations about self-love, healing, and intimacy by following at MILF Ministry on Instagram, Facebook, or Twitter. My name is Ayodele Vassal. I'm an attorney, a creative, and a MILF. And I pray you always have honey for your spirits and honey for your lips.